Welcome to the Stories Told podcast. This is episode 56, Becoming a Hero.
This is the Stories Told podcast. Two authors talking about stories in movies, TV, and of course, books.
I'm Michael Grayford. I write action-adventure stories in fantasy and sci-fi worlds, sometimes for younger readers and sometimes for adults. And I try to always inject at least a little bit of humor.
And I am author E.W. Barnes, and I write action-adventure, time travel novels, and space opera science fiction. Thousands of years, thousands of worlds. But be forewarned, beyond here, there will be spoilers. Are you ready for the adventure? Let's begin.
Welcome back to the Stories Told podcast. I'm author E.W. Barnes, and with me is author Michael Grayford. And today we're talking about the story told in the live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender series, episodes 5 through 8. How you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well, too. Thank you. And what's new in your writing world?
Let's see, writing world. What's new? I think last time I mentioned that I had finished or was just about to finish the first draft of Zara 2. So if I didn't say that I finished, then I have finished. I finished it like that day or the next day, I think. That's cool. I'm taking a break from editing that for at least a week to just let it sit. And I'm focusing instead on sort of business aspects of writing. There's a whole rigmarole with newsletters and making sure you set things up right so you don't get marked as spam. So I've been going through trying to figure that stuff out. All kinds of technical details there. And otherwise, I will be working on just marketing and promotion type stuff and gathering notes that I had from Zara 2 and for Zara 3 and organizing those. Yeah. That's where I'm at. What are you up to in the writing world?
I am still working on a Clipchamp, and I was hoping to be finished by the time this podcast was recorded, but I'm not. I only have like 9,000 words left. I'm getting there. It's coming. It's pulling together, so I'm getting there. And I'm continuing to work every day doing an audiobook chapter. Those are going up on YouTube, and that book should be finished here in the next week or so. I think I only have like 5 or 6 chapters left in this particular book. This is the 4th book in my time travel series, the Temporal Protection Course series. And so as soon as all the chapters are finished, then I will consolidate them and make them one long audiobook. And then that's going to be the end of the audiobook work, at least on YouTube. There's an origin story. I'm going to do the audiobook for that, but I'm only going to make that available on Patreon for people who are like really wanting to know where the villain came from and how time travel was discovered, etc. So that's the plan there.
Oh, cool.
Thank you. So what interesting stories have you come across lately in books, movies, or television?
Let me think. I think only the one we're going to talk about today, the live action Last Airbender. I feel like I must have seen something else in the meantime, but it's not coming to mind, so that they can't speak too highly of whatever it was. So let's just keep it at this one. What have you seen or read?
Like you, I have really only been watching the rest of the Avatar series. I think we watched another episode of Halo, which is really riveting. It's been really good. I'm looking forward to, we're going to talk about Halo in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about it, because I have really been enjoying it and been sort of like, okay, when's the next episode? Can we watch an episode yet? So that's a sign that it's, it's definitely hooked me, and I want to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah, that's good. I'm excited for it.
So are you ready to talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, episodes 5 through 8?
Oh yeah, let's go.
Today we're talking about the story told in episodes 5 through 8 of the Netflix live-action version of Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm going to read the synopsis from the Netflix Last Airbender page. A young boy known as the Avatar must master the 4 elemental powers to save a world at war and fight a ruthless enemy bent on stopping him. So did you like these last 5 episodes?
Yeah, I did. There's a lot about these that I liked. I thought it was a good continuation of the series of the first 4 episodes that we watched and talked about. There's a lot of little things they did and they included, which I'm glad about. It seems like they're still on track in terms of providing similar character development and themes that they had from the original animated series. I love that we're seeing some cracks in Zuko's hard shell. We're starting to see some more depth to him as a character. If I remember right, in the first 4 episodes, he was mostly just, I've got to get the Avatar and reclaim my name and, be in line for the throne, and that's all that matters. And we're starting to see a little bit more to him now, which is good. It's set up for obviously the next, hopefully 2 seasons to come. I loved their journey into the spirit world with Ko, the face-stealing spirit, or demon, whatever it was. I remember that. I didn't remember it prior to this episode. But once I watched it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that thing from the animated series. So I thought that was really cool. I'm glad they brought that in, and Aang had to rescue his friends. I liked the way they set that up. I'd forgotten him going off and coming back part of it. So I don't remember if that was the same or how that played out. Maybe you can speak to that more when you get to talk about it. And I liked the interaction with Aang and Zuko. After Zuko rescues him with his mask on and gets injured, Zuko gets to see another side of Aang and, see him as a person. And again, set up for stuff that's to come later. So I think that was good. I'm glad they had that in there as well. I love that we get to see Zuko's crew rally around him when they learn, what he did to basically save all of their lives. Thought that was really well done. I love that we finally get to see Aang commit to the Avatar state, for him what is going to be a sacrifice. He basically realizes, this is it. I'm giving myself up for this, and this is my last action as the Avatar. Obviously, he doesn't play out that way, but I like that we see him willing to do that. I love the battle between Zuko and Katara, and Aang's confidence in her. Thought that was really fun. I don't remember how that played out in the animated series, so again, I'd like to hear your input on that. I'm glad they included the whole moon story and the big battle at the end. I thought was well done. I think they're going in the right direction. I do have some things I will note that I felt like they could improve upon, but we'll get to that. But first, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I will tell you this morning when I was preparing for our podcast and I was pulling up the little synopsis about the show, right front and center on the Google search was entertainment news organizations were reporting that Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix has been renewed for 2 more seasons this morning.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so we get to see the rest of the story, which I'm actually really glad about, because I think this is a very well done version of this story. I agree with you. I think they really did a good job pulling things together from, I don't know, how many hours are we talking about of story in the animated version? I was going to think about doing the calculation of seeing how many episodes there were. Let me see if we can find out.
I think there were 20, right? 20 episodes? I might be wrong. In the first season, I mean. Yeah, so 20 episodes in the first season.
So 20 episodes of half an hour a piece is 10 hours of storytelling. And they condensed that down to 8 hours of storytelling in a medium which is very different than animation. And I thought they really did a good job. Overall, there were some things, like we're going to talk about, some things we might have done differently, but I think overall they did a good job. And overall, I actually am really, really enjoying this. And I think the second half was better than the first half. There were some episodes, Masks, that was the episode where Zuko rescues Aang. But we're actually seeing a lot of different character development and different parts of the character story there that I thought made the entire episode brilliant. It was really one of my favorites. And then the last episode, Legends, was also one of my favorites. I thought they did a great job weaving things together with that. The episode that you were asking about where Aang left, that was a compilation of a couple of episodes, like we have been seeing, where they're taking several episodes and merging them together into several episodes of the animated series and merging them together into this live action series. So what we were seeing there with Aang leaving was a callback to an episode where Sokka and Katara get sick and they have to eat frozen frogs or suck on frozen frogs. And so Aang goes off to find the frozen frogs. Anyway, that was so I think that was what he was going to help his friends, which is what happened in the animated series. Then it was sick. Here it was they were captured by Ko. And they didn't make Ko as scary in this. In the animated series, Ko was very scary because you weren't supposed to have any change of expression. Otherwise, he would steal your face. And I think that would have been too hard to do with live action. I mean, everyone has an expression, right? It was great to do in animation because you can just draw the expressionless face and then do it. But I think they did it fine this way and made him a little less scary, but I still think it worked. He was still scary. So yeah. I thought that worked. Yeah, I was excited to see how much of the animated series they did weave in. And I thought they did, for the most part, a really good job of weaving in all of those elements. So I was really excited about this, and I am looking forward to watching season 2. Now, there is one question that I wanted to ask you, and I kind of wanted to talk about, was the individual character arcs between the animated series and the live action series. There have been some changes. There was discussion about Sokka in the animated series had some sexism about female warriors, and that was removed in the live action series. And instead, his character arc appears to be questioning himself about his worthiness and capability of being a warrior, instead of having sort of just a false ego about his warriorness that was then chipped away by interacting with other people who really were warriors. What did you think about overall all the character arcs in comparison with the animated series versus the live action series?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you probably remember it a lot more than I do, having just recently watched it. But I did notice that I was wanting a little bit more. These are some of the things that I had on my notes that I would improve, and one of them was specifically with Sokka. I would like to have seen him be able to grow more, both in his skill set and as a person. Over the course of the season, he didn't really change that much. Like you said, it was more about where he fits as a warrior, like how much can he, rely on that. Whereas I seem to remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the animated series, he starts off as kind of a schlub. He's really incompetent. And, he wants to be a warrior. He wants to be this person, but he just doesn't have the skill set. And he thinks much higher of himself than his skills would show. And I would have liked to have seen some of that. I was kind of missing that, now that I look back at this season as a whole. I kind of wish they had taken some more time in the beginning, setting up the characters more like they were in the animated series. I think that kind of growth was interesting and stood out for me. Again, unless I'm totally fabricating this in my mind.
No, you're not. You're exactly right.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see that for him. Because now I didn't get nearly as much growth for him as a character in this show. That said, it played out fine. Like if I hadn't seen the animated series, his character seemed fine, right? It just, he doesn't change as much as he did in the original series. And I think it's a loss. I think it was cool to see him grow. He actually gain skills and become better, learn from other people. I don't remember the sexist thing, so it's like he was just, I don't remember what it was. He thought he was better than the women or something, and
I think it had
they ended up beating him.
The Kyoshi warriors. Remember the?
Yeah. And what happened in the original series? I don't remember.
I think he was just sort of aloof and assuming that he was better because he was male, and surprised that they were such good warriors because they were female.
Yeah. See, I would have liked to have that in there. I think that's a good message. It's like, hey, don't underestimate these people. I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, so I don't know. I think some things like that. I actually had a note that I wouldn't have mind adding an episode or two, which I guess would have taken us about the same amount of hours as the original series, to give us some more of that setup for the characters, to give us some more fun with the characters. I feel like we lose a little bit of the fun in the Netflix version. It's a little more serious from the get-go, as we talked about in the last episode, which is fine. But I do miss some of the fun, and I don't think we have to go full on silly like in some of the scenes in the animated series, but just showing the characters playing a bit and getting to know each other a little bit more, because it kind of jumped into it really fast. It felt like in this series. Yeah, if I wish there had been at least one episode where Aang was more of a kid trying to avoid his responsibilities, again, to give him some more growth, because in this it starts off, he's serious and takes his responsibilities very seriously pretty much from the beginning. I would have liked to have seen that. I think they took out, by removing some of the setup in the early episodes, they took out some of the growth for these characters, and I would have liked to have seen that back in there. It certainly doesn't ruin the experience for me. I also very much enjoyed this. I also think these latter 4 episodes were even better than the first ones. I think they do a very good job. Another thing that I noticed, sorry, this will be my last point, and then I'll hand it back to you. Another thing I noticed is Katara. I would like to have seen a little more of her training, and also with Aang, but put that aside for now. With her specifically, she basically gets one line from Jet about focusing on the good things in her past, and then she pretty much just becomes a master waterbender out of the blue. She makes a very quick transition from barely being able to bubble water in the first episode to being like Avatar level skill at waterbending in the final episode. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a transition during that. We got some of it, but it just felt like all of a sudden in like the episode where she's in the Northern Water Kingdom, now she's a master. Like, where did that come from? Maybe that was just a me thing. I will now hand it off to you. What would you improve, and what do you think about the character stories and Sokka in particular?
I agree with you about Katara. And actually, I was thinking as you were talking that a single line of dialogue or a couple of lines of dialogue would have done it, because they could have said, Katara's always practicing her waterbending, and something just off the cuff to let us know that when we're not with the group in their adventures, she's practicing. And that would have solved that problem about how, that continuity of how she got from water bubbling to water flinging. But I think the same issue that you raised about sort of being able to see the growth of Sokka, that is echoed for Katara as well. I'm not sure she's any different of a character from the first episode to this last episode, except for the waterbending skill.
Yeah.
I don't think she's really changed much. Now, maybe that's going to change in the future.
I think it's even worse for her.
In what way?
Well, just that she doesn't really change.
Yeah.
Like, her character doesn't really change. I mean, she kind of was always standing up for herself, and that's what she does at the end. So it's like her standing up for herself could have been an awesome moment. Yeah. And it was a good moment, but if we had seen her like transform, like if she had been more timid and, kind of shy and afraid to speak or something, then when she finally stands up for herself, you'd been, yes. Whereas now it's like, okay, that's just who she is. So yeah, I agree with that.
Now, let's talk about the character arcs that I think were really well done. I actually am really excited about what they did with Zhao, General Zhao, or Admiral Zhao.
Oh, yeah.
He was a deliciously evil guy. I enjoyed it every time he was there, because it was like he took his badness to a new level. And you just got to see the depths of, how conniving he was. I thought it was terrific. I don't think we got that kind of level of, yeah, he was a bad guy. Yeah, he was self-serving. Yeah, but he was still sort of like a loyal member of Ozai's military. And in this one, he's like, I'm going to take over for Ozai. I'm going to be the new Ozai. And I'm thinking, that's awesome, right? And it was also very consistent with the behavior that we've been seeing with the firebenders, some firebenders in the story. So I thought that was really well done. I also thought giving Ozai some more depth was really good, because in the animated series, Ozai was just sort of a bad guy. He was just the bad guy. He was the overarching bad guy. He was the dark cloud in the distance all the time. And he's still the dark cloud in the distance, but you could sort of see some of his motivations, what's driving him, what the issues are for him. And I think that's been really good. So about some things that I would change. It kind of goes to what you said about maybe adding another episode, but I'm not sure a new episode was necessary. I think maybe just some tightening up of the pacing could have done it, because there are places where the pacing seemed a little off. We talked about in our last podcast conversation about the scene with the soldier, which seemed to just go on forever to try to make a point that the Earth Kingdom doesn't like the Firebenders and doesn't like General Iroh. I actually kind of felt the same way about Avatar in his Water Godzilla state. You know, Aang doing the Water Godzilla Avatar state.
Yeah.
That took too long. He could have gotten into water, destroyed a few ships, and then Yue, saves the moon spirit. And I don't think we needed to spend so much time with the CG, which is what it felt like. It felt like, oh, we got great CG here. Let's stay with it for a while. But for as far as the story was concerned, I don't think we needed that. So what I might have done differently is tighten up the pace a bit and then add those layers of character development and interplay, add that interaction that we're looking for that helps develop those relationships a little bit more for us as the consumers of the story.
Your note about the battle at the end where he's the water fish Godzilla. Yeah, I guess I agree with that. I like that sequence. I like the battle sequence, and we get to see what the power of the Avatar is like. We got a hint of that before when, I forget her name, one of the previous Avatars took over his body basically and did Avatar stuff, but the scale and scope of her attack was still like within the realm of the benders that we've seen fight, whereas this was a totally different level of like, they have absolutely no chance against the Avatar when full-on power is displayed. So I loved seeing that. But you're right, it probably could have been chopped down a little bit. I don't think it needed to go as long to get us the point. That's true. And maybe you're right. Maybe just tightening up the pace, they could get some more of the things. What do you think about my comment that it's missing some of the fun, like especially in the early episodes, like thinking back from the original series, some of the fun interplay where the characters are sort of playing with each other and getting to know each other. In particular, Aang and the other two. I
agree with you 100%, and that's what I was referring to when I was saying getting in more of that interaction and interplay.
Okay.
And you're right, I didn't say that specifically, but I agree with you 100%. That's what I was thinking. You could cut out some of these other scenes and add some of that play, so that interaction and the play that helped them develop the trust and the relationship and the team Avatar that they ended up forming. So yes, I agree.
What do you think about Sokka's growth and how that was handled? His character development, and also Zuko.
Oh, I agree. I think both of them. You're exactly correct. I think we need a little bit more from Sokka. I think we were supposed to assume that it's about his confidence as a warrior. And in the last episode, it was you don't have to fight battles to be a hero, which was a nice thing to say. Because I think that goes to what Sokka's issues are, that here in this particular one, that he doesn't have confidence as a warrior. But I don't think that we actually really see that until episode 5 with the face stealer one. Then we see he's not confident as a warrior. Up until that point, we didn't see any of that. So that groundwork wasn't laid. I agree with you 100%. The groundwork wasn't laid for us to see that. With Zuko, same thing. The groundwork was much better laid there. Much earlier on, I guess is what to say, was laid much earlier on so that we could see what's really driving him much more earlier on. And then when we got to the end, where we could see the machinations of Ozai and how Azula is being played too, and she's furthering Ozai's machinations either knowingly or unknowingly, then it had much more resonance because the groundwork for Zuko's character arc was laid earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So as a writer, what do you take away from this story?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to take away. Most of the things we kind of hit upon when we talked about the animated series, and then some again with the first 4 episodes of the live action. So I'm going to look at it from the perspective of looking at it from working on an adaptation. So I think rather than doing a simple remake or merely condensing plot points, the key is to try to find the heart of the story and the theme or the themes, if there's more going on, and make sure that those are there, most importantly. And I think they're mostly doing that. I think they're doing that pretty well. And yeah, because you could do a remake, right? Where it's like, okay, we're going to take this story idea and we're going to, do a different plot with it. Or we're just going to do the same plot and remake it for a modern audience. And I think a lot of those, they lose the soul of what made the original one good. And I think here they didn't. I think here they're focusing on those things that make Avatar, at least for me. The themes and the characters outside of, the notes that we had on them. I think it's working pretty well. So that would be my takeaway. What about you?
My takeaway is, so as a writer and for my own writing, I wanted to take a step back and see what I could learn that I could apply to my own writing, because I don't really see myself doing too much in the way of adaptations. I agree with you totally that this, I think, is actually well done. Overall, I think they did a great job. I think they've hung on to what we loved about the original animated Avatar series, and I'm excited to continue watching this. So I agree with you 100%. But I kind of came at this from a little bit more of a selfish perspective for my own writing. My takeaway is that when I'm looking at a plot from the 30,000 foot level, and I'm thinking about, because, and that's where my head is right now, because I'm almost finished with the book and I'm going to get ready to start plotting the next one. And I have some vague ideas of what I want to do, but I think really crystallizing the feeling I want to leave my readers with, which is what we were getting from this show, is a feeling that we're being left with, and we're overall happy with the feeling we're being left with. And so if I think about it from that perspective, I want to make sure I include in my, great mind map of the next story, the overall feeling that I want to leave people with, and have that be sort of the flag that I keep in front of me all the time. Leave them with this feeling. Make sure you leave them with this feeling. And, having this show reminded me of how important that is.
Oh, that is such a good note. I was just watching a video a day or two ago by a screenwriter. It was just an interview with him where he was talking about exactly that, like how a lot of the best screenwriters that he knows, they focus on just that, the feeling of the story and the emotional journey they want the viewer to go on, and then they write the plot to give that emotional journey. That's such a good way of looking at it. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us as we talked about the story told in episodes 5 through 8 of the Netflix live action series of Avatar: The Last Airbender. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters and all our subscribers. We're so grateful for your support and encouragement. The Stories Told podcast is available on multiple podcast platforms, and we thank you for liking and subscribing or following, depending on where you're listening. It may not be a big deal to you, but it means a lot to us. You can find Michael Grayford at michaelgrayford.com and E.W. Barnes at 1000years.com, and those links are in the show notes. Join us next time as we talk about the story told in the 2010 film Inception. Thanks, Mike. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thank you. This has been great.
And we'll see you next time on the Stories Told podcast.